Hello, it's Dr. YouTube. I regularly upload medical educational videos. Today's episode will be all about my experience of using a Freestyle Libre device. Now, for those who don't know me, I am a practicing doctor. I specialize in medicine and diabetes and the specialty that deals with hormones. The Freestyle Libre is a device that goes under the skin. Now, conventionally, people with diabetes, they do finger prick tests. Now, those are more accurate. However, this device called flash glucose monitoring or Freestyle Libre is another way of checking your sugar level. It's not as accurate because it checks the what we call interstitial fluid sugar, so that if you imagine you've got blood vessel, the blood vessel sugar is most accurate, but surrounding the blood vessel is the interstitial fluid, the fluid that bathes the blood vessels, and that is not as accurate but good enough in certain circumstances. Now this device, it goes it's very easy to assemble if you read the instruction booklet. That is the reader that goes under your skin, as you can see there, in your upper arm, that checks your sugar level. Now it's licensed in type 1 diabetes patients, but you can self-fund this. It costs about £50, £50. I think that's excluding VAT tax, but I think it is worthwhile trialing this to see the effects of certain diets on your blood sugar levels. It lasts for 14 days, and I thought I'd give it a try just to see the effects of different diets and to see what it was like to be a diabetic. Now, it's important that you scan your device as much as possible. From a doctor point of view, we advise a patient to scan at least 8 times a day. That is to avoid any data breaks. So, for example, if there's a period of time where you forget to scan, then you lose that data. But if you keep on scanning regularly, about 8 times a day, for example, then the data becomes continuous. Normally, we advise our patients to have blood sugar more than 70% within target range of between 3.9 to 10 millimole. Ideally, we also want to aim for less than 4% of time spent in less than 3.9%, 3.9 millimoles. So more blood sugars within the target range of 3.9 to 10, and less than 4%, less than 3.9%. Another indicator that we check in our diabetes population or patients is the GMI. That is like a crude measure of HbA1c or overall diabetes control. The other is the variability, so how fluctuant the blood sugar readings are, and we aim for that less than 36%. Now, the ones within the blue, the dark blue, is 25 to 75%, and the ones in the light blue are the more extremes. I think it's 5 to 95%. And yeah, so as you can see here, there's more variability in my blood sugars in the morning, which is not too surprising when I think back retrospectively, and then less variability throughout the day. It tends to be more of a peak in the morning time, because actually that is when your insulin resistance is the highest. So this is the Libre view, where you can check your blood sugars on a laptop, for example. As I said, it's important that you scan as much as possible. I scanned about an average of 16 times per day. So when you go on the Libre view, this is what you can see. see the number of low glucose events. As I said before, this Freestyle Libre is not 100% accurate, so if you note a low sugar reading or if you're having symptoms, it's important that you check your own blood sugar level. Yeah, so it also calculates an average of your daily carbohydrate count. So a very low carb diet, for example, is less than 30 grams per day. Most people average about 120, 130 grams of carbohydrates a day. I averaged about 129 grams per day. So what was it like to be a diabetic? Well, I had a newfound appreciation for counting carbohydrates, the effort, the amount of effort that takes, you know. So I also found certain food portions or food types that made my sugars go up very high. So first of all, one of the apps I found quite useful was called the Carb Manager, Carbohydrate Manager app that you can download for free. You can, for example, download the app for freely. You scan the barcode of the food that you're about to have. It tells you the amount of carbohydrates. You can also search on the app. For example, I looked at biscuits, so those contain about 10 to 15 grams in total. So that was that. The app that I used. As I said before, certain foods really spiked my blood sugar. So porridge was one of them, as you can see here. It really went up, and when it started to come down, that was when I had the sleepy feeling. So it wasn't very nice at all. Compared to something, for example, where I had chicken curry around dinner time, that was homemade, of course. It was a more slow release type of carbohydrate, and I didn't have that sleepiness effect. So you can use those diets to your advantage. For example, if you want to try and go to sleep, porridge may be something to consider. When you get that down effect, that's when you get the sleepiness. I also compared having porridge with chocolate, dark chocolate, and without chocolate, as you can see here. Now, dark chocolate don't contain much sugar compared to white chocolate. Dark chocolate also has more fat in it, so it becomes a more slow release. So as you can see here, the blood sugar remains elevated for a longer period of time compared to just porridge itself. So just within a few hours, the porridge, the sugar level comes down. But with dark chocolate, it becomes a bit more elevated before coming down. So different diet. It was quite interesting. I tried different fads of diet. For example, a carb-free meal. Now, for example, mackerel, egg, and broccoli, those have minimal carbohydrates in them, and I felt completely fine, actually. As you can see here, my blood sugar did not change. Compared to porridge, as shown in my earlier slide here, there's that early peak, and then plummeting. That's when I felt really tired. So carbohydrate-free meal may be something to consider if you don't want to feel tired afterwards. I also assessed the different snacks that the effects of different snack. Biscuits and orange contain about 12 grams. So there was a tiny peak before going back to normal. Biscuits, a bit more carbohydrates, about 20 grams. Now cereal, it was one of those fruit and fiber small box cereals that I had within one go. They actually do contain quite a lot of carbohydrates. I think it's about 20 to 30 grams. So it's not really a healthy snack to have in the long term. As you can see, it really peaked and stayed high for a prolonged period of time, probably because of the fiber that it contained. Vegetable crisps, on the other hand, they're a bit more healthier in a sense, because although they do contain carbohydrates, they're slow release, as you can see here. Very minimal change. how about intermittent fasting? Well, I do advise certain people to consider intermittent fasting, probably less of the type 1s, but more of the type 2s, sometimes to try and lose weight. Again, this does not, this is a video that does not consist of any healthcare professional advice, but it's just my personal opinion. But there are mainly two modes of intermittent fasting. One is the 8-16 diet, so that's where you eat within 8 hours and fast for 16 hours. The other method is the 5-2 diet, where you have normal meals or normal portions for 5 days, and have 2 days in between where you calorie restrict yourself. For example, 500 calories a day, whereas a normal day would be between 2,000 to 2,500 calories. I've actually tried for a few days of intermittent fasting, so skipping breakfast, for example, where I only eat from this period of time to this period of time. So that is actually, 6 hours? So I actually did lose weight. I'm already rather slim myself, but I lost a bit more weight. So I didn't actually feel hungry during the daytime. And that I was quite surprised with. It takes time to adjust initially, but that may be something to consider if you are overweight, but definitely seek medical advice first, especially if you're on something that can potentially lower your sugar level, such as insulin or glycoside. As a healthcare professional, I work nights. I found that certain pre-night meal can affect my nighttime performance. So, for example, I had salmon rice. Now, salmon have a bit more fat in it, and so compared to porridge, for example, porridge not much, minimal fat, hardly any, but like I said before, you get that really high and then plummets. And as I said before, that was when I started to feel hangry. So hungry and angry, maybe a bit, but also feeling very hungry. So I snacked a lot more when I had a heavy carbohydrate percentage meal, such as porridge. So I had orange biscuits after my porridge, whereas with my salmon rice, which was a bit more fat, so therefore slows the gut motility, making you more full and less likely to snack and eat afterwards. I felt actually a bit more awake having my lower carbohydrate portion meal. So in summary, how did I find it? Well, it was the removal of the Freestyle Libre was a sad day for me, but it was a happy relationship. It stayed on for 14 days. It was quite easy to remove, but I learned a lot about my diet. So, first of all, very easy to put onto yourself, lasts for 14 days, license for type 1. You can self-fund this on the Freestyle Libre website. It costs about £50, £50. Just to summarize, for the diabetics, we aim for target range between 3.9 to 10, more than 75% in the target range, and less than 4% in the less than 3.9% or 4%. I learned about the different apps that you could use to count your carbohydrates. The one I used was called Carbohydrate Manager, and I found that porridge made me feel very sleepy and hungry afterwards, and was not a good pre-night meal because I'd often snack during my night shift. I guess that's why a lot of night shift workers become overweight, perhaps. Dark chocolate, on the other hand, they do contain carbohydrates, but they contain a bit more fat, so a bit more slow release. So maybe something to consider. But obviously, not in the. It's be worth having a word with your healthcare professional or diabetes specialist nurse or dietitian to discuss these things. Vegetable crisps were a healthier snacking option compared to things like biscuits. Vegetable crisps have a low GI index, is that slow release because of all the vegetables, compared to biscuits, which is more carbohydrate heavy. I also had carbohydrate-free meals and also tried intermittent fasting, and surprisingly it had minimal effect on my appetite. I felt fine, and in fact even more alert compared to having porridge, for example, with my morning meal. And yeah, and I tried, like I said, utilize these meals to your advantage. I hope you've liked this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Take care, and look after your diabetes.